Before we start the show, just a word from our sponsor, Undeniable Press. For all your screen printing needs, located in the Corktown district of Detroit, Michigan. If you ever need any t-shirts or any other little promo accessories, posters, or whatnot printed up for you, go to Undeniable Press. They're located, once again, in the Corktown district of Detroit, Michigan, and you can reach them at facebook.com/undeniablepressdetroit. And those same guys who do Undeniable Press also have a clothing line called 20 by 20 Apparel. It's very much wrestling themed, all sorts of nostalgic themes in regards to the history of wrestling. And you can go check out their clothing line at 20x20apparel.com. That's the number 20x, the number 20apparel.com. Now let's start the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bummy, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those. You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grindin' shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all. Cause it's nothing to me, it's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop it them all. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. Until I'm running out of breath, or tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, goddammit, we fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I am your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. This is episode number 80. Our guest this week is self-publishing comic book creator Victor Dandridge Jr. He is the owner of Vantage Inhouse Productions and is also currently the Wizard World Artist Alley coordinator. He has written titles such as The Samaritan, The Trouble with Love, the Origins Unknown series, and the anthology novel 8 Minutes. Along with launching his U Cre-8 Comics line, it's a unique bridge between comics and classroom fundamentals. As you remember, Dandridge was the suggestion back in episode 75 from fellow comic book creator Kasey Pierce. During our conversation, we talked about what it takes to coordinate the Artist Alley at Wizard World, the importance of Artist Alley for creators and future creators at comic conventions, making the transition into being a full-time comic book creator, the idea of becoming someone important, the importance of failure, and knowing when you're finished with your project. So let's get to the interview with Victor Dandridge Jr. How's everything been going with you?
Not too bad at all, man. Not too bad at all. Hope you don't mind my daughter. I'm a stay-at-home dad when I'm not on the road and everything, so I got my little one here, my little co-pilot with me.
It's all good. Yeah, I saw the Instagram post.
Excellent.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for taking the time out to chat with me.
Of course, man. It was my pleasure.
Cool. Yeah, like your name came up when I was interviewing Kasey Pierce for the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I do a regular thing where at the end of the episodes, I ask for a recommendation of somebody that, part of their career, part of their life that would have good stories.
Great.
And, when I was talking with her, she said that, you've been, recently appointed the coordinator for Artist Alley for Wizard World.
Yes.
And she was saying something about, like, how recently Wizard World was sort of, the Artist Alley is almost getting forgotten amongst all the celebrities being there. Like, you explain that.
All right, so like a lot of people, and it gets really deep, like it really does. So I'm gonna throw in some of my personal philosophy on the whole matter into the equation. But for a lot of people, Wizard World is a brand that focuses on celebs more so than the comic creators that are the source material that a lot of these celebs are basing their work off of.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have a problem with that. They're like, it's not cool that you're gonna put all the shine on the actors as opposed to the comic creators, the artists and writers that this stuff is born from. Me personally, and this is kind of how I've operated for a while, and I don't want to say that this is why Wizard, kind of put me in this spot, but it's kind of like I recognize that comics as a medium is very wide. Like when you say Comic Con, you're not specifically just talking about comic books. It's comic movies, comic, cartoons and TV shows and video games and clothing and toys. Like it's comic everything.
Right.
And while I love comic books, that's what brought me in and everything, other transmedia outlets, movies, TV shows, that's what's really put everything on the map right now. And like you can really see it when you talk dollars and cents. Look at Black Panther. Black Panther made, more than $1 billion worldwide. But the Black Panther comic book combined, if you take all the comic books combined, I doubt they're making that much money. You know what I mean? So you kind of got to look at it and say, okay, in regards to being a business structure, the thing that actually has made more money for Wizard World is the thing that they're going to focus on, and that's going to be the celebs. Celebs bring in any casual person. How many people, in the absence of Wizard Magazine being gone, even know what comic creators look like? Like that's a lot of stuff that people don't even pay attention to anymore.
Right.
So, there is that truth to it. But by bringing me in and me being a person, as far as I'm aware, I'm the first Artist Alley coordinator that actively is a creator as well. It's possible that I might not be the first one, but I'm the first one I can readily think of since I've started exhibiting at Wizard World shows. But I have an innate understanding of what, the creators need, what they want, and then what Wizard, is aiming to do and how to fit those things together. There's a lot of times where, a person has a particular mentality of what they want, but it doesn't necessarily fit with, the party that they're trying to get it from. And I'm the guy that can tell you the difference between the two and how to meet in the middle. So that's what I'm aiming for.
As a coordinator, how do you sort of balance all of that, with, bringing people into the Artist Alley, while, that will kind of work well with everything else that's going on?
It's a matter of really kind of looking at what all is there. So like that was one of the funny things. Like one of the things that my boss actually brought up once is we were talking about theming out certain markets that we go to, and he's like, well, you can't do it at every market. I was like, well, name me one that you don't think you could do it in. And he was like, well, Des Moines. We couldn't do it in Des Moines, Iowa. And I was like, actually, yeah, you could. You could do it really easily. And he's like, how? And I'm like, Iowa Hawkeyes, right, is a school up there. That's the mascot. So then we bring in, people that have worked on Hawkeye comic books. You bring in Jeremy Renner, and ta-da, now you have a Hawkeye-themed show. And he's like, oh, my God, like that actually makes sense. And I'm like, I know. So it's kind of using things like that. So if we have a celeb that's on deck and they're banking on that person to be a big draw, let's, put in the comic creators that worked on projects surrounding that celeb, so that way we can make those things happen. So like Jason Momoa has been a big feature recently, and we're working on bringing in James O'Barr, who created The Crow, because Momoa is going to be the Crow suit. So having them together at the same show, we're building up, anticipation for this upcoming film and also highlighting James. So there's a lot of things that we're doing to kind of build up the connection between the movies and the comics that they come from.
With sort of people not knowing what these creators look like, too much anymore, how important is it to have Artist Alley to be, a really strong thing for these Comic-Cons?
It's really important. And I'm just getting started really in terms of how we want to structure that. Like we really want to put forth more effort into creating more social media posts about the creators and showcasing not only what they look like, but also their work, so people can see, they can put the face to the name, if you will. Point blank, I think despite the popularity of The Walking Dead, if Charlie Adler walked by, how many people would know who that was? How many people would know what, Tony Moore looked like? Robert Kirkman, like he's on a lot of things, media-wise, so you might know him, but those two guys are just as important, but you don't know them. So those are things that we're trying to, push. When it comes to like actually having promotional material that goes specifically to comic shops, I'm of the mindset that while I like the pieces that showcase the celebs, we need to create separate, posters that only talk about the comic book creators and put those in comic shops, because that's the direct market that applies to. And so it's one of those things where, yes, technically it might cost a little bit more money. I mean, not that much though, if you think about it, because how many comic shops are there in any particular market? So I mean, you basically, instead of like a huge print run, you go to Staples, spend $5, and you got like posters for everybody. So you're good. But yeah, it's stuff like that. Yeah, I definitely think that the creators need to have more of a spotlight. If for no other reason, then that's how we'll get more shine to the next, IPs, the next things that are going to come out and make a big splash in this world.
Outside of sort of the creators that will like sort of link into those themes with the celebrities, how do you go about picking the other content creators that you would have at Artist Alley? I'm
trying to find hustlers. I know a lot of people. I've been in this game for a minute. I mean, like my first show was in 2004, and I've seen people come, I've seen people go. I've worked with a lot of people, and I'm really looking for, particularly on the indie scene, those people that don't allow the fact that they're indie to limit them. That's something I'm trying to bring in, because those are the people I think absolutely need that push, and I'm in a position to help them get there. So, I've got, people in my circle. Kasey is definitely one of them. So Source Point, I worked out a cool independent comics deal with I worked out an independent comics deal with them because, they're a publisher on the rise, and, I had the means to make things a little easier for them as long as they're aiming for a long-term, format, and they were. So we got them at almost every show at a really nice rate. Wizard makes some money. They don't spend a whole lot of money. So everybody's happy. It's a win-win situation. And so that's the biggest thing. If I see you doing something, I'm definitely going to give you that recognition. Like, I see you. I see what you do. You do good work. But as long as you're willing to not stand there and have a handout and expect that, then I definitely will rock with you, because that's the thing. Like, I hustled hard to get where I was. When I first started out, I started self-publishing in 2010. My first book came out in 2011, but that's not the thing that drove me for the longest time, because it wasn't what was selling. I did what I needed to sell until I got into a position where I could focus on my books and then make that happen, and all those different things. So if somebody's on that same wavelength, we will ride together.
I've had this discussion with a few other people recently where, when it comes to the people who are these content creators that are at these conventions, there's there's sort of a difference. There's the ones who talk with everybody that walk by. Then there's the ones that just pretty much just sit there and like doodle on their, on their pads or whatever, How important is it to engage with people?
That's huge. Like, that's actually what I kind of used as my lane entrance to Comic Cons. Years back, when I first really kind of got into it, I had these pixel art designs that I did, and I had big giant banners, and I played this game called the 8-Bit Challenge, where for $2 people had to name 10 characters correctly in order to win a prize. The whole point was to engage with you. Like, I'm standing up, I'm looking people as they're walking by. I don't want you to just pass me. That's the bottom line. I'm trying to make a presence here, and I want you to know that I'm here to entertain you. Like, I'm trying to create an experience for you. So if I'm just sitting there with my head down, drawing or whatever, that's not going to happen. I got to create something for you.
Right. I'm still fairly new to going to Comic Cons. I've been mostly a part of the music scene up here in Detroit, for a while now.
Right.
But the cool thing is that recently I've met a few people who are part of the whole Artist Alley. Kasey Pierce, Stephanie Menard, Dirk Manning, Craig C. Hayes, and what's super cool is that, I was able to easily engage with all these people, and they're, they have things that they want to sell, but I'm not getting the hard sell from them. It's
right.
And that's what I really enjoyed about, a lot of these people.
Predominantly what you just described were all writers, right? Yeah. And what's really interesting is I have this theory that for writers, if we sell you something, we literally have to sell it twice. The first time is to get you to actually buy it, right? But because this is a product that you may not know, the first thing I have to sell is me. You gotta like me. And if I come through like a pushy salesman, you're not gonna like me. There's no way, that's not gonna be fun. So you gotta like me first. And then once you like me, and you like what I do, if you slap down dollars on it, that's great. But I need you to do the second sale, which is to actually spend time, and that's the other thing is like, if I'm pushing, you might buy the book to shut me up and then walk away and never look at it again.
Right.
But, and that doesn't, it might seem like it's helpful. Like, yes, I sold one, but the truth is I want to make you a long-term fan. It's not just issue 1 I want to sell you. I want you to come back and look for issue 10. So if I've, made a mockery of myself or, pissed you off in some sort of way, that's not going to work. Really? That's how you feel about it? How many shows have you done? You agree? I like that. So yeah, like that's why it's important to not just be a salesperson. I mean, yes, sales are important, but to make connections, Dirk famously has a sentiment about, it's in his Right or Wrong book. And I want to say it's like finding enough people that will support you long-term, and you're basically a rich man because you'll never be short of any particular fan base. So he's right. He's absolutely right.
I know that, for these Comic-Cons, the celebrities bring in the people, bring in a lot of the revenue, but Artist Alley, how important is that to the whole grand scheme of the Comic-Con? Is that the heart and soul of it all?
It's not only the heart and soul, it's low-key the future, man. So I work with Wizard World, and one of the things that I keep telling people that have ever, had a rocky experience with us, is that the one thing that I really hold on to and maintain is absolutely true, and one of the greatest parts about Wizard World's Artist Alley is the fact that we don't curate your presence. If you have the funds to get in, you are allowed to be there, whether that's a attendee, whether that's an exhibitor, whatever. And unlike other, premier institutions that do curate, that means that they're not allowing for new talent or undiscovered talent to really kind of find a foothold. Wizard World is like, okay, look, if you feel like you can play, it doesn't matter what scale or level you're at, come on in, test yourself. If you feel like you're ready, come in and try it. There's nothing to stop you. Exactly. That's how I feel. So, that's the important thing. That's why Artist Alley is so important. It's not just a matter of maintaining the status quo of who's important and who's not. It's building up the next generation of creators. It's how they'll get to, be discovered, be found, share their work, make their own fan base, and meet people, like networking each other. Like, that's why it's important. It is not just the heart and soul of Comic-Con. It's low-key the heart and soul of comics. That's how you build that next generation.
Yeah, I see when I'm, the few Comic-Cons that I've been to where I'll see someone like Kasey or Stephanie or Dirk talking with people who want to know knowledge about, and they're really helpful in giving them tips and listening to them. How important is it to have those people a part of Artist Alley?
I think that's phenomenal and such an integral part of not only Artist Alley, but for the culture of camaraderie that we have. It's funny. So like, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, right? Now we have a long-standing joke that, between Ohio and Michigan, there's definitely rivalries between sports and stuff like that. We love that joke. But it's important to me to kind of put aside some of that rival aspect or that competition aspect and really see what my peers are doing. If we didn't talk to each other, if we didn't push each other, and certainly you only share that information with those people that really seem genuine and want to use it, because the goal is ultimately to promote myself, to push myself. As I always say, steel sharpens steel. So if I do something that's fire and I tell you to do it and you do it better than I do, then it's my turn to kind of see what you added to it and then add to that, musically speaking. I mean, like you said, you're part of the music community. So let's look at hip hop. Hip hop started with a very, yeah, exactly. I know you're a hip hop fan.
Right.
Very, Dr. Seussian kind of rap format.
Yeah.
And it just grew and built on complexities. And then, I mean, one of the best that ever done it, Eminem, Rap God. That's one of the most complicated, beautifully executed raps I have ever heard. But it's built on the foundation of something that was simple that somebody else just added onto and added onto and added onto till it was M's turn and he got to put his spin on it. So, that's what the goal is to share this information so that we all find ways to get better.
Yeah, and when you were, sort of talking about how like the content creators are the future of everything, that did also remind me of the hip hop culture where at one time the producer was very much unknown,
right.
But then eventually they became artists themselves. So I like kind of picking apart these sort of parallels that I see in the comic book universes with the music industry.
They're huge, man. They are some of the biggest pieces ever. Like, I saw something the other day that was saying that, and it was funny because, like, I have an art background as well, but I predominantly function as a writer. But they were like, the writer is the rapper and the artist is the producer. And I'm like, nah, flip that, scratch that, reverse it. It's actually the other way around. The writer is the producer. They're the ones that make the beat that they send to the artist, and the artist has to find a way to spit a nice hook on it. That's what the visual piece is. So, like, I like the correlations. There's lots of people that do it. I know I've definitely done it. There's a conversation that we had not that long ago in a Black comics group that was talking about how everybody wants to be the Jay-Z or Kanye of comics. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. Sometimes, though, it's best to be the Diddy of comics. Now, a lot of people are like, nah, Diddy ain't nothing. Diddy spoke it best. Don't worry if I write rhymes, I write checks. He makes ways for people. And for me, like, that's what I say I am. I'm the Sean Combs of the Comic-Con community because I'm going to make a way for people. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to take that, and there you go. So, absolutely.
All right, let's speak about your company, Vantage Inhouse Productions. How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that full time since 2010. Like, I had a nice cushy state job, and I was like, man, I can't stand this. Like, this whole 9-to-5 thing, it sucks. I don't like it. And so I quit. Exactly. You know it. I quit, and it was the funniest thing. I love telling this story. My father, who is one of my biggest supporters, like, ever in life right now, he might be tied up there with my mom for sure as my number one fan. Like, they go back and forth. They battle. It's real. But he was adamantly against me quitting. It's a state job. Like, that's the only thing better than that is working for the federal government. And, I was making good money. I had a family. And he's like, you cannot quit to just make comic books. And I told him, I was like, look, I'm going to make you eat those words. Within a year, I'm going to make you eat those words. He said, bring it. He said, but in the meantime, don't ask me for nothing. If you're going to make this move like a man, you're going to stand like a man. I said, that's the only way I know how to go. So I quit, and I've not had to take a non-comic oriented job in 7, almost 8 years. So I've been running my imprint full time, doing conventions full time. Wizard World hired me last year. I'm a teacher. I started an imprint called U Cre-8 Comics that is all about programming and products to help people make their own comics and also feeds into classroom dynamics. So I teach. I'll do summer programs at libraries, conventions, all over the place. So everything just kind of has built to be this whole model of me constantly doing comics. And it all started 2010. Man, God, that was such a great time.
Now that's very interesting. Let's talk about that transition you made from going from a state job to dedicating your career to comic books. Like, just for your regular person listening to that, what goes into that? What actionable items can a person do to be able to make that transition if they wanted to? So
the thing is that you can't go in half-cocked. You got to think stuff through. I'm a big thinker. Like, there are times where it looks like I'm not doing anything, and I'm literally sitting there thinking, just plotting out what this move is, what it's going to mean, how it's going to go, this, that, and the other. I worked for the state for like 5 years. So I had a decent retirement already saved up. So when I quit, that was my plan. Use the retirement money to launch this business. But part of launching that business meant, let me pay my rent for the year. Let me do that. Let me get coverage in certain aspects. Like I was telling people, I work for a Department of Workers' Compensation. And so I was telling people all the time, I was like, why don't you apply for workers' comp? And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, it's like a form of insurance of sorts, where if you get hurt in the act of doing your job, it's covered. And they're like, well, how does that apply? And I was like, I don't know. Let's see. How many comic book artists have you ever heard complain about their back because they're sitting at a drawing table all the time, or they have carpal tunnel, or their eyes are going bad? These are all facets of what their job is, and it will be covered under workers' comp. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. The fact that what we're doing is pretty much clerical means it actually has a low rate of risk to it. So we're one of the cheapest, pieces that you can actually apply for. And it extends itself to even like, because comic conventions are a part of us doing our job, it covers that. So if I were on the road on the way to a con and I get into a car accident, that's a form of workers' comp coverage because I was in the process of doing my job. And so, trying to hit things from that angle, like how can I be smart about this and do what I need to do? Like I said, I had a family, I had 2 boys and a daughter at the time. It's extended now to far more than that. We've got 5 total, including this little sister here. How you doing? Yes. I was willing to sign up for food stamps because I technically didn't have income. So I was eligible. So I did it. There's a lot of people that would look at that. Oh, no, I don't want to be on food stamps. Listen, it fed my children. They are very happy. They've grown. They're giants now. So I'm not worried about it. And I worked my butt off to the point where now I'm ineligible for food stamps. Like, that's a beautiful thing to me. I'm that guy that tapped into the system. What? I know. I tapped into the system and then used it like I was supposed to the point where now I don't need it anymore. We now have a new house that we bought 2 years ago. It's a beautiful 4-bedroom, newly renovated spot right around the corner from my grandmother. So, family is a big thing for me. Find your base. Definitely have your base with you. That's family, that's friends, that's a support group. Because there are going to be times when you're all by yourself struggling, trying to figure out why am I still doing this? If you can't find that answer for yourself, sometimes you got to look at others and see how your moves are inspiring them. I can't tell you how many times, my family has said that. They're like, look, it's amazing what you do. There are times when I feel like maybe today might be my day, but now I'm like, I'm not ready yet. It's okay. That's cool. As long as you know that it's possible, that's what matters. That's all that matters.
Everything that you just said is like really awesome advice. Is this something that you readily like tell people?
Oh yeah. My story is one that when you lay it all out, and it's so funny because I was just thinking about this past weekend. When you lay it all out, it actually is like a comic book. Like it's nuts the way it's like a comic book. If you don't mind, I will tell my origin story right
now. Go
ahead. Okay, here we go. So when I was a kid, I hated reading books. Like I despised it. Books they sucked, man. Like you couldn't get me to read Huck Finn. If you put a gun to my head, it was like, read this. I'm like, nah.
Right.
But all that changed with the death of Superman. I was tapped into pop culture enough to know, like, I didn't read comics, but I knew who Superman was. Yeah. And the idea that Superman could die, I'm like, I don't even know how that happens. I must read this. And so my mother, overhearing me say that out loud, was like, done. Comes home, stack of comic books, gives them to me and is like, read these. And I've been a comic book reader ever since. So fast forward like a year, by me being into comics and it got me into reading more, writing, and then getting into drawing, it connected me more with my father's side of the family where, I was a skinny little kid. Like, I'm skinny. Like right now I got some shoulders. It looks like I do some things. I didn't have these shoulders when I was a kid. Like, nah. Like they were such a sports, heavy family that we didn't have anything that we really connected on. So I was kind of, a little bit removed from my father's side until the comic book stuff came in. And then all of a sudden we had stuff to talk about. And I found out that 3 of my uncles could draw really well and they would sit with me and we would draw. We would come up with different characters. So it actually like helped build my family to be even tighter than we ever were. My youngest uncle was a really strong advocate for supporting me, like huge advocate. And like literally a year after I got into comics, he was brutally killed. 3 teenagers attacked him out of nowhere, and he was stabbed to death. Oh. And as a almost 11-year-old kid, I did the Batman vow by candlelight that I was going to make my way in the comic book industry somehow, some way in honor of him. And it's been my guiding force ever since. Like, that's been me. So he's my Uncle Ben. He is absolutely my Uncle Ben. Right. And what's crazy, man, I kid you not, you can't plan stuff like this. The day he was attacked is March 17th. So St. Patty's Day, crazy. In 2006, my youngest son was born on that day. So that's already taking that day back for my family. And then in 2010, my very first solo published book ever, I got in the mail on that day, So it's one of those things where it's like, that's how you uplift somebody. That's how you remember them, memorialize them. Like I created in his honor, and I got it on the day that he died. Like you can't make that stuff up. Like that's just, wow, that's real life. That actually happened, So like that's part of my story, man. Like that's the stuff that happens, off of this past weekend, craziest thing in the world, a redemption story, 14 years in the making. 2004, my very first Wizard World show. I had never exhibited before. I'm behind the table. It's Friday. I made $100. I'm feeling like the greatest thing in the world. You couldn't tell me nothing. Like $100 was a lot back then in my head.
Right.
And right, I'm feeling my salt right now. And we're doing BarCon at the Hyatt Regency out there in Rosemont, and I see Joe Quesada, newly minted as editor-in-chief, running around. I mean, he had a couple years in, but he's like walking around and he's looking like he's looking for somebody. And I'm feeling myself. I had a good day. I know who he is, so I'm going to speak. I'm like, Joe, who you looking for, man? He goes, somebody important, and then walks away, right? Like, everybody that was around me was like, oh, that's dirty. Oh, he dogged you. And I'm like, no, he just gave me a goal. Be somebody important that Joe Quesada is looking for. That's my goal now. 14 years later, fast forward, I'm artist alley coordinator at Wizard World Comic Con. Not too bad. I snuck, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, into C2E2. And same scenario, bar, kind of not quite after hours, it's like midday. And I'm walking through and I see Mark Waid. And I've known Mark for a few years. And Mark has just as befuddled of a face as Joe did. And he's just looking around. And I'm like, Mark, are you okay? And he stops and he goes, oh, Victor, how are you? No, I'm fine. I was thinking about something and I lost my train of thought. And I was like, you look like something was wrong. He was like, no. He's like, thank you for checking on me, but I'm good. How are you? How's the family? Blah, blah, blah. And we're chatting and it just kind of stuck. I was like, wow, here we are 14 years later, a seminal creator like Mark Waid. I stop him to see how he's doing. And not only does he know my name, we spend the next like 5-6 minutes chatting it up real quick before he goes on about his business. So now it's not just somebody that you just walk by. I'm actually somebody that these guys speak to. So I'm on my road. So watch yourself, Quesada. I'm about to be somebody important. Watch.
When you think about things like that and just see where this whole progression you've made during that time, what goes through your mind? What are you thinking about right now about those early years?
I'm very proud of them. The struggle was worth it. Anything that I didn't have, anything that I failed at, totly worth it. When you come back now at this point and you see how everything has, he's asking me, not you. When you see how everything is built and you see how when you put in that work down here and you stick to it, no matter who's with you, who's not with you, and you keep going, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. That's why I tell you, if you're in your basement grinding, keep grinding, because the moment you step out into the light, it will feel so much better that you spent that time doing it. That's Kanye, 5 beats a day for 3 summers. Yes.
You mentioned the word failure in that. How important is failure for the process?
Oh, it's absolutely important. It makes you appreciate everything. I've had projects that I've tried to do, projects that didn't launch. That apartment that I said that I paid off for a year, I lost it the very next year because I didn't have the right money at the right time. Sometimes you got to take a step back to leap forward. I'm all for doing that. Sometimes if you're really smart, you do it on purpose. Otherwise, you take it as you go. But failure is just as important because you can't really appreciate success until you know what it's like to not have it. If you always win, it's nothing. You don't really get it. So yeah, I love a fail.
You just mentioned something about taking a step back on purpose. Talk more about that.
So, let's see. So there's a book that I did called The Villain. And when I wrote it, I was heavily inspired by one of my greatest mentors and my newly minted friend, Mark Miller. He had just done Nemesis. And Nemesis was like 2 issues in. I'm so inspired that I do like an homage with this book called The Villain. And it was an interesting sort of piece. Like the guy I was working with had never done sequentials before, and it definitely showed in how the pages came through, and I had to build stuff together. And it was only 8 pages. Like I like doing 8-page stories. And it was out for maybe a year, but I hated it. Like in rereading it, it didn't flow well. I was trying to be Mark, and I didn't have my own voice, and I didn't like any part of it. So I decided to pull it. And so I hadn't produced it probably within like 2 years. And then I redid like the cover. I had, intentions of actually re-releasing it. And I looked at it and said, you know what? No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that at all. I'm going to wait. I'm going to, flesh out this story longer to make it what I need it to be and make that something that will be far more interesting and beneficial to both my resume, my readers, and everything, the creative process. So to me, that book is a fail, even though there are other indie publishers that have actually asked for it. I've actually there's a group out of Springfield, Ohio, Twilight Star Studios. They asked, could they reprint it? I said, go for it. I mean, they love it. They absolutely adore it. For me, I don't like it so much. So for me, that's a fail. But it's one that I recognize other people like. Other people might learn something from it. So I don't hesitate to, talk about it, even though I don't like it. Any of that stuff is good stuff. Right now, I'm working on a follow-up book called Never Too Late, and it's the follow-up to my book, The Trouble with Love, that I did with Harold Edge, and he's back for the sequel, which is great. And we've just finished all the line work for issue 1, and I lettered it. We're waiting for it to get colored, but I sent over a preview copy to a couple people, including Mark Miller. And, some people in his camp that I'm close with read it and gave me the riot act. They was like, no, this is confusing. This is bad. This is that. Take this page out, blah, blah, blah. And mind you, like I'm a self-publishing guy, right? So I'm footing the bill for all this. So they're like telling me to ditch pages that I've paid for. That's harsh, right. For a lesser creator, an immature creator. That's grounds to cry. This is like, I quit. I'm terrible. I suck. Getting that feedback, I literally went back, like I printed out all the pages, grouped them by scenes, and started playing around with it, editing wise. And now I have an even better story. The way that it comes across is even better. I only lost 1 page by doing that and really kind of shaping things up. But for all intents and purposes, that first initial version, that was a fail. I own that. It wasn't as powerful of a story as I thought it was. And somebody had to tell me that. I didn't even see it myself. I failed at seeing that I could push this even further. Yeah. And so, that's, again, own those failures because it's really how you get better.
What is the best way for anybody, whether they're new in the game at whatever art they're doing, to bounce back from their failures?
Remember that everybody fails. There's things that like Jim Lee every once in a while will post pictures. Todd McFarlane will do it of all the rejection letters that they've received. And when you see legends in the game getting stacks of letters saying that they're not good enough, but finding that they found a way to push through and got there, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's everything. I remember, like, I went to Columbus College of Art and Design. I only stayed for like a semester, and I went back to see some friends, and they were like, "Can you say something to this new group of artists that we got coming in that are comic book fans or whatever?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I tell you what, who is the worst comic book artist in the game right now?" Funny enough, almost hands down, everybody was like, "Rob Liefeld." I was like, "Okay, that's how you feel. I get it. It's a joke. It's good. I got you. How many more books does he have out than you?" And they're like, "Oh." And I was like, "Remember that." As much as you say this guy fails at his art, he's got infinitely number more books than you do, and you know his work as soon as you see it. Recognize that. Even in failure, this man is a success. That's how you keep moving. You find a way to make do what you needed to do. You don't stop.
When you're sort of working on your own thing, how do you realize that you're at a certain point when this project can be finished? I know you're never going to be totally satisfied, but how does it feel when you're like, okay, I think this is ready to go or almost ready to go?
So, can you curse on this? Are you allowed to curse on this stuff? Okay, so I do what I call the fuck around and finish, and it's where I work on multiple projects at once, and I'll do a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, until I suddenly realize, oh shit, I fucked around and finished. Like, I didn't realize that I had done the whole thing until it's already done. So that's one of those things where it keeps things fresh for me, and I have maps of where I want everything to go. And so when I hit that point, that's a stop. That's basically what it is. Like, as soon as I did that thing that I was aiming for, then we can go ahead and shut it down and not overwork it. Yeah. I'm good for, backing off when I feel like something is set.
So it's almost like having preparation, but also having other things to work on at the same time.
Absolutely. So, like, to have the combination of prep and inspiration work together, that's how you'll do it. Because, like I said, there'll be times when you'll have a map and you'll get a sudden burst of an idea, and you want to go in a different direction, and you got to be able to be open to that. But at the same time, if you don't have any idea of where you're going, you'll just work, and it'll never get there. I do a panel called the VIPs of Self-Publishing, and the very first one is know the difference between an idea and a story. A story has a beginning, middle, and end. You have a structure to it. An idea is just this loose thing that can just pop off, and you get stuck with the and thens, and it never really goes anywhere. So, if I only operated off of and thens, then I wouldn't have nothing. Not a thing.
What is your workflow like in terms of, working, but also having sort of rest and leisure? There's some people who just like feel like you always have to be working burn the midnight oil. But how do you feel like, rest and leisure, accounts into it all?
You got to find the time to do it. I struggle with that all the time. I mean, I've got 5 kids ranging from ages 15 to 7 months here. And we have a healthy showcase of going to the movies. We'll go out to dinner. We play video games together. We try to eat dinner together every night. But that midnight oil is a necessity. Like, literally, I was up till 2 last night working on a project. That's just the way things work for me. I go by the hardest working man in comics. And a lot of people, they give me crap for it until they're like, well, what all do you do? And I'm like, well, I've got an imprint, artist alley coordinator. I teach this, that. And they're like, oh, my God, you really are. Okay, that makes sense. But it's really just finding the time to do things, the inspiration to do things, and having the tools to do them when you need to. So, I have this beautiful, iMac computer that we're talking on right now. What? You're so great. But I also got an iPad Pro, so that way I can be in the living room with my daughter if I need to, but still get work done. I'm good for writing on my phone when I travel to a Comic-Con. I'll be at the airport or on the plane jotting down ideas. That's where I am. That's what I need to do, or I need to get something finished. So that's me. Me and Google, oh my goodness, we are like this. I got Google Docs on my phone. I got it on my iPad.
Right.
I'm always finding a place to work. It's one of the greatest things in the world because inspiration comes at any time, and I have so many things that I need to do. I have to be able to work whenever I can. So, I mean, it can literally be on the store ride to the, or on the ride to the grocery store. I got an idea, whip out the phone, and put it away, figure out till later. And then usually, like I said, I'm with my daughter for the day. So come around 6 o'clock, we try to do dinner. Hang out with the family till 9 or 10. When everybody else goes to bed, I'm up for at least another 4 hours. So it's just finding a way to do it all. You know, a lot of people are like, man, you're gonna run yourself dead, and I'm like, you know what? For my family, it's worth it. You know, this is my dream. You know, I got to drive like I'm chauffeuring it. Ain't that right? Exactly. Exactly.
In order to sort of manage the time between family and everything that you have to do in your career, how did you build that foundation to be able to, manage the time properly?
By accident, totally by accident. I can't even act like that was on purpose. I'm a king procrastinator. I do recognize though that when I get into a flow, don't stop. Don't stop the flow just because. That's another big thing for me is like when I get into a zone and I'm guilty of it, like just like Mark Wade was walking around and he had that face, I'll have that face and I'm just in the thing. Luckily, my lady, she understands like when I get into that space, just leave him be. He'll be all right. He's not mad. It might look like he's upset about something. He's literally figuring something out. Right. And as soon as he does, he'll be back. He'll be fine.
Anytime you're sort of in that sort of procrastination mode, is there any sort of like outer accountability that you need to have to be able to troop on?
Yes and no. Like it depends on the thing. So obviously, as artist alley coordinator, the show schedule is one that is an external factor that says I have to get this done. So I can't just wait on that. I do have a little bit of leeway as a publisher, as a self-publisher, that no one else gets to tell me when my book is due. I just do it when I want to, and that allows for things to happen. Really, though, when I get into a place, there is a place that I call like the static. And you be quiet. The static is when I'm kind of locked out of my own head. And so to be creative isn't there. So what ends up happening is like the left brain takes over the right brain side, and I start to think more structural. How do I manage marketing? How do I add to my production line? How do I think about comics as a business venture as opposed to a creative one? And so when that happens, those are the things that I do, and it tends to relax the right side, so that way I can get back into that flow of being creative.
Those things that nobody, can tell you what to do, like, publishing a book. How do you sort of finish those if you don't have any sort of outer accountability? What inner accountability do you have?
I want to tell that story. I want other people to see that story. I'm egotistical. I call myself the hardest working man in comics. You can't be a quiet dude and call yourself that. So it's basically one of those things where I want to tell that story so badly, and I want you to say that it's so good that I'm going to finish it, because that's the only way I'm going to get those accolades. You're only as good as your next album, not your last one. So, for me, to finish it, that's the thing. Like I gotta put it in people's hands. The Trouble with Love sequel, Never Too Late, took me 3 years to write it, like just to write it. It's looking like it's going to take another year for it to be actually finished and produced. But because of the success of The Trouble with Love, I really, really, really want to test myself and see how well I do on a sequel. I've never written a sequel before. So can I do it? Can I maintain that same energy? Can I bring something better? Can I top what I did the last time? All these questions are enough to feed my ego to be like, I don't feel like writing. But you want that outcome. And if you want that outcome, you got to put in that work. And I'm like, okay, you're right. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go do that right now. So it's a duality. You got to figure out how to manage yourself. But being honest with yourself, that's the key. I know I'm egotistical and I want people to pat me on the back. Ironically, whenever I ask somebody to read my stuff, I tell them to tell me what's wrong first. It's just my weird way of not looking like I'm egotistical, or actually seeking, am I actually that good? Or if I come to you and say, hey, can you tell me what's wrong, and you don't have anything, then I've done something right. I'm telling you I'm looking for something wrong. So I'm already putting you in the mindset of a negative. If that's not what immediately comes to your head, then I'm doing my job.
Along with the sequel that you're talking about, what's next for you? What does the future have in hold for you?
Ooh, let's get some jewels dropping right now. All right, so we've got our first flagship title, issue 1 of Vantage. It's actually being wrapped up right now. Like literally today, I got a message from penciler Jacob Newell that he's wrapping up that first issue. And anybody that's followed my work knows Jacob's name from the Origins Unknown series. And he's coming back for Vantage. We work very well together. We're going to pull that off, make that happen. We've got more books from our all ages series, Wonder Care Presents the Kindergartens, coming out. In fact, for Free Comic Book Day, we're actually bringing back the activities that we created in the first issues as an activity book. Like, we're putting it all together as this nice little repurposed, collection of sorts that a lot of people are looking forward to. I've created my own superhero team called Safeguard. That's actually going to be like backup features, just 4-page shorts. I got Scoot McMahon on board for doing the artwork for those, so I'm very excited about that. And we've got approximately 6 other titles that we're going to be launching over the next 2 years.
All right,
so
fantastic.
Lots of stuff coming.
Awesome.
Lots of stuff.
Awesome. To close out this interview, I did let you know that there's a question that I always ask people at the end of the interview. Who is someone that's a part of your life career that I could realistically interview that would have some great stories to tell?
So I've got a lot of people that I could throw out a name for. And I'm going to throw out a couple at you.
Go ahead.
I'm going to end it with the person that I absolutely want you to talk to. So first and foremost, I got to say my brother Mike Watson is definitely somebody you should talk to. That's who I actually started in this game with. I wrote for his imprint Freestyle Comics, writing his flagship title, Hot Shot. And I'm actually coming back to write his first major crossover event called the Zero Event. We'll be starting that within like the next 3-4 weeks. So he's definitely somebody to talk to. Has been in this for a while. We got lots of history together. I'm going to say somebody who I don't know as well, but we've actually had some really great interactions, and I really think that he is a creator to watch, is Josh Dahl. He's out of Boston. Very cool guy. Very interesting cat. Like we did a podcast. He has a podcast show, and I was on his, and we just vibed really, really well. And I really like him. But the person who you need to reach out to, person who I'm absolutely co-signing as the guy, is Jacques Naim. He's out of North Carolina. He runs Not So Super. It's a comic imprint it's crazy the way that he calls it Not So Super Comics, but they are freaking amazing. Like, they really are great books. Slice of life stories, not necessarily your fights and tights kind of thing, but it's interesting to see a young creator doing that. Like, he's a young black creator at that. Like, he's actually originally from Cameroon, if I'm not mistaken, and is bringing like a different view of black comics. And that's a big talking point. Diversity is huge these days. What? Can I talk about Jacques, please? Thank you. You're so cute. That's a big talking point, and that's something that he's bringing such a vastly different view of what it means to be a black comic creator. He is definitely somebody to speak to. So Jacques gets my number 1 pick as somebody to speak to. Absolutely.
All right, great. Thanks for the suggestions.
Of course.
This has been a great interview. A lot of great information, a lot of great actionable items. It was really, fun to talk with you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, man.
And your daughter.
Yes, I know, right? Troublemaker.
Cool. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, thanks for chatting with me, and good luck with everything.
Oh, right back to you, man. Fresh as the word is hot. I'm a fan now. I'm telling you right now.
Great. Thanks, man. If someone wants to find out more information about you or Wizard World online, where should they go?
Of course. At Vantage Inhouse is where you can find me on all forms of social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Definitely hit me there. Every week I do a video review series called Black, White, and Red All Over on YouTube. Red Art. I know, it's your favorite show on the internet. I know, you're so sweet. It's READ. And that's actually what put me on Mark Miller's radar. He actually features the show on his Miller World website. So that's a blast. You can also find me co-hosting the Hall of Justice podcast with Seth Everett. So I'm everywhere. And then look for me at a Wizard World near you. I'm running Artist Alley. I'm a celebrity moderator.
So that was my interview with Victor Dandridge Jr. He'll be coming to a Wizard World convention near you. I think I'm going to try to make it down to the Columbus Wizard World the second weekend of June. Now on to the Fresh is the Word Fresh Pick of the Week. This week's pick is an album that cannot be ignored. Book of Ryan from Detroit hip-hop artist Royce da 5'9". Without any expectations going into listening to Book of Ryan, it exceeded any vague idea I might have had, tenfold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold. It's scary that after all these years, Royce da 5'9" just keeps getting better, getting more personal, getting more deep on each and every verse, song, or album that he does. The Book of Ryan is such a personal album, probably one of the most personal and transparent hip-hop albums I've heard in a while. Royce doesn't waste a lyric. Every word means something. He doesn't even need to rap. He can just talk and make a track hot. He's not just telling stories or rapping. He's exploring his life throughout this album. Nothing is tied up in a nice little bow in the end. It's just a documentation assessing how his past has affected not only himself, but his family and everyone around him. It's definitely something you need to listen to, even if you're not a hip-hop fan. It's such a deep and personal and very emotional album. So go ahead, go listen to Royce da 5'9's Book of Ryan. It's on all the streaming platforms. You can purchase it. It's definitely worth your time. So that's it for this week's edition of Fresh is the Word. Just to remind you how you can support the podcast, you can always go to freshasthepodcast.com and share any of the links that you might see on the website and any of your social media. You can subscribe to the Fresh is the Word on Apple Podcasts by just searching Fresh is the Word. Please give us a rating, hopefully 5 stars and a review. And if I see it, I'll definitely talk about it on the show. We're also on Stitcher Radio, Mixcloud, SoundCloud, Google Play, and TuneIn. Just search Fresh is the Word. It'll pop up. Hit the subscribe button or the follow button or whatever. You can also follow me, K Fresh, on Twitter and Instagram at KellyOmegaFresh, and on Facebook at facebook.com/KFresh. And also, you can follow Fresh is the Word on Twitter at FITW Podcast, on Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, on Facebook as facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast, and on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/Fresh is the Word Podcast. Once again, thank you. Thank you again for listening to Fresh is the Word. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.